There we go. There we go. Oh shoot, that one's pretty big.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Grounded Haven. Today is another planting day. I have a bunch of seedlings to transplant. Here they are in this tray, and this is my tray of brassicas. I have broccolis, cabbages, cauliflower, kohlrabi, that kind of thing. So that's the project for today. I'm going to be planting these up. Here's a good look at the seedlings, and I think they are maybe like 6 to 7 weeks old. I think I started them from seed mid-February, and it is early April now. So almost 2 months old. They're looking pretty good, a few sets of true leaves, and some of the older leaves are starting to die off and turn yellow because they're kind of like outgrowing their little seed trays right now. So I really want to get these into the ground as soon as possible. And I'll show you the space that they're going to be going in. So it's in like the back part of our garden, right over there. I've kind of talked about this a little bit in previous videos, but I've laid down some weed fabric. This here is just a pathway, so there are no holes in it, but then over here, we just burned some holes in it yesterday with like a blowtorch flamethrower type tool, because the weed fabric I'm using here is a woven plastic weed fabric, and if you cut it, you can see here, it kind of frays. But if you burn it, it melts the plastic, and then it won't fray as easily. So here you can see where we've burned it, and it doesn't have a ton of like little plastic bits hanging out, so hopefully that's going to work well. So obviously we haven't gone in and burned these edges yet, we still have to do that, but I just wanted to go ahead and get these plants planted into the bed over here, since they are looking like they need to be out of their seed trays. So each of these holes are spaced 18 inches approximately apart. So we have 2 lines and then 18 inches all the way down, and I was able to fit a total of 34 little spots for my seedlings. I have 40 seedlings, so I'm gonna have to make some cuts and plant those somewhere else also. Before I laid the weed fabric down, I did already add a good layer of compost underneath, so I won't have to worry about amending for right now. I think the plants are going to be good with just that compost, especially because most of these things, they're not going to be in for like the entire summer. I'm thinking that most of these are going to be ready to harvest in like late May and into June, so they're only going to be in the ground for like the first part of the season. Once they're ready to harvest, the plants are going to be pulled out, and I'm going to put some new plants in there, and then depending on what I put in afterwards, I might top off with some more compost or granular fertilizer. But for these plants, I think they'll be fine with that one application of compost. Sometimes throughout the season, if I have time or if I remember, I will water in with some fish fertilizer, and that'll help them as well to get like a good boost of nutrients if they look like they need it, but otherwise I don't really think that they will. So let's go ahead and pop some of these plants out, and I can show you how the roots are looking. So these are my broccoli seedlings here. And yeah, you can see those roots are just starting to get a little bit root bound, so they're definitely going to be ready to go in, but they're looking pretty nice, I think. The planting process is going to be really easy, and I think it's going to go really quickly today because I don't have to add anything to the soil, and all of my spaces are already mapped out with all of these holes that we've burned in. So all I have to do is just like make a little hole in there, pop my seedling in, kind of pat in the soil around it, and we're good to go. So we're all done. The whole row has been planted. I love how it looks so neat and everything's evenly spaced. And actually the only seedlings I had left were these 4. These are my kohlrabi plants. And then I also just had one little cabbage plant that was a little smaller, so I didn't pop that in. So I have another bed that these are going to be going in. But for now, I am going to work on covering this bed. We have a lot of bugs that will damage brassica crops. Probably the biggest one is those like little white cabbage moths that will lay eggs, and then the caterpillars will hatch and then start eating the leaves. But we also have flea beetles that will eat little holes into the leaves, and later in the year, harlequin bugs can really decimate brassicas. So there are quite a few pests that I kind of want to avoid, and a physical barrier can really help with that without me having to spray anything onto these plants. So what I like to do is add some hoops. The hoops that I'm adding here are made out of this thicker gauge wire. I'm not sure what the gauge is, but where I found this in the store is kind of by like the chain link fence area, because I think that's what this is typically used for. It comes in big coils, and then we just cut it down to size to whatever hoop we want to create for our plants. And it's pretty affordable when you buy it in like a big coil. I like this wire because again, it's affordable and you can get a very large quantity of it, and it's also sturdy enough to hold netting or frost fabric, which is what I'm going to be using today. Even when it rains and the rain kind of like drags down the fabric, these hoops are sturdy enough to hold the fabric up off of the plants. And you can use either insect netting or frost fabric. I'm just using frost fabric because that's what I have, even though these plants do not need the extra warmth protection. But pretty much anything that will just create a physical barrier where those bugs and moths can't get to your plants is going to help a lot. So we're all good here, all covered up. Now I've got to find a place for these last few seedlings, and I have just the spot for them. They're going to go in this bed here. You can see I've done the same thing where I've put some hoops and covered it with frost fabric. A lot of this bed has already been transplanted with seedlings, as you can see here. In this bed I have more brassicas, but these are kind of like the smaller varieties. I have some kale here, more kale here, and then here I have bok choy. At the very end I planted arugula, but I have this whole space empty, so I think this is going to be the perfect spot for my last few seedlings, which are again the kohlrabi and one cabbage seedling. So I think what I'm going to do is do my 4 kohlrabi kind of farther apart, and then I'm just going to put this last cabbage seedling right in the center. The kohlrabi doesn't need as much space, and then the cabbage can just fill up the center over there. So that's it for today. I am done with all the planting, and I think that is the rest of my cool weather crops that I finished today. So we just have a few more weeks until it warms up, and then we can start planting all of our summer things. But honestly, it feels like summer out here right now. I am like melting. It's like 80 degrees and like 90% humidity today. So I'm gonna get inside and cool off. And I showed that I watered in the kohlrabi that I just planted, but I didn't water in that long row of broccoli and cabbages, just because we are going to have rain this afternoon and all of tomorrow. So the rain will settle those in, but otherwise I would have watered those in. Especially on a hot day like this, it's good to make sure your transplants are nicely watered in right after planting. But yeah, the rain's gonna take care of that for me, so I'm all set there. So that's gonna be it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed seeing all of these plants going in, and I will see you again in the next video.